Back to Kuala Lumpur for Tournament Centre number 2. Rich Hagan, Bill Stark, welcome back. 3 rounds are down, and that means some people are out the door. The trap door is opened, and Bill, we've got some casualties already.
That's true, Rich, we do, yes.
Okay, well, we'll tease you with that in a mo, but first, we left you with a little trivia question. Kenji Samura, Ryan So, Ding Leon, and Masahika Morita, what have they got in common? Bill, the answer is...
Rich, if I remember correctly, those are the 4 previous winners of Grand Prix Kuala Lumpur, is that right?
That is absolutely correct. Kenji Samura in 2006, so he is the last winner in this very building. Interesting. All right, so here's some scores on the doors after 3 rounds. 3-0, unbeaten. Let's start with a couple of French guys, Raph Levy, Hall of Famer, Guillaume Wafatapa. Is that a surprise, Wafatapa, 3-0?
Wafatapa is a guy that has a reputation as being a bit of a constructed mastermind, but I think when you're testing with Raphael Levy and Emil Tenenbaum and the Ruel brothers, you really can't go wrong with having a good shot at a limited PT, no matter how many constructed events you're famous for doing well at.
Okay. Couple of Japanese guys to pick out for you. Masashiro Kuroda is there, Shingo Kurihara. He made no bones about it. He said, I'm level 8 now, I want to be a level 8 again next year. Fair play to him. Now, Paul Cheon, not the best feeling today. You've got a little more on that, Bill.
Yeah, I actually got to sit down with Paul earlier today. I've talked to him a couple times. He has been feeling a little bit under the weather. I think just mostly his stress from traveling so far to get here. But you know what? Apparently he's shaking that off and said, even at a tough draft pod where he had to play against Chris Lockman and a number of other top name players, he said, you know what? We're here to play Magic. Let's battle. All
right. Also there, Nikolai Podovin. Then we go to the 2-1. So they're in decent shape as well. Robert van Medevoort, the Netherlands, runner-up from Stuttgart. John Finkel, Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame's made such a difference to Magic. It's great to have the guys back again and battling against the new breed and player.
Absolutely. It's always exciting to see Johnny Magic playing cards, and according to BDM, who's familiar with doing the drafts with him in New York, John has been just demolishing everyone. And you're talking about drafts which feature a number of Hall of Fame caliber players and hundreds of Pro Tour points at any 8-man pod. So that's pretty exciting to see him here.
Other names at 2-1, good shape going into draft 2. Frank Carson of the Netherlands, Chris Lackman we mentioned, Louis Scott Vargas, Paul Cheon's other half, if you will, and the current player of the year, Tomohiro Saito. Now it gets interesting. 1 and 2, that's the elimination bracket. So 8 players will sit in a pod. Only one of those will go 3-0 to get to the 12 points they need to come back for day 2. Players here, Takuya Owasawa, Steve Sadin, Paolo Vidal Rosa, Svi Moshevitz, Mike Rohn, the Geneva winner, he's down there, Moraine Libert of Belgium, Quentin Martin, Shota Yasuoka, Olivier Ruel, and now here's a real killer for you. Mark Herberholtz at 1 and 2, feeds in draft 2 Kenji Samura at 1 and 2, feeding America's David Irvin. Only one of those 3 can make day 2. And maybe one of the other 5 guys at the table knocks them all out. That's just carnage, and that's what we like.
Yes, absolutely. And you got to point out with Olivier Ruel, he caught a real lucky break at the 0-2 bracket when he was called to the feature match area and his opponent just didn't show up. It's the difference, I think, between the pro-level player and the people who can kind of get worn down in their mental game. Even though Olivier Ruel's back is against the wall with an 0-2 record, his opponent broke under that pressure and just didn't show up. Olivier said, nope, I'm going to play out, take what advantages I can get, and keep playing even if my opponent doesn't show up, whether I'm at 0-2 or not. Still in it to win it.
Absolutely. But at 0-3, you're not still in it to win it. You can do another draft, have another go. But Thomas Refstyle, Camille Cornelissen, former Team World Champion, a couple of Dutchies there, Wessel Omens, he's gone. And the big name so far out at 0-3, Kutara Otsuka in the world's top 10. He made semi-finals at Worlds last year, only a couple of months ago, but he is gone. That is the biggest name so far. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Japanese world of Magic. It's been a strange old year. On the one hand, no Japanese player won a Pro Tour last year, but on the other hand, Tomohiro Saito, Player of the Year, Yuya Watanabe, Rookie of the Year, and the team, from quite a long way back, admittedly, made a run towards the back end of the team event. They were close to being in the final of that team event, you know. So, Bill, is Japan still a real powerhouse in Magic?
Oh, absolutely. I think you could actually make a credible argument that Japan is the powerhouse in Magic, especially when you have names like Kenji Samura and Tomohiro Saito and just a ton of high-caliber players who you can always expect to top 8 at GP. Having an off year after having such a long history, once they caught steam and from never top 8ing, I think is fair. It's more than expected. We kind of saw a resurgence of American Magic a little bit last year. Americans won 2 Pro Tours for the first time in quite some time, which was exciting. And Japanese players still made up a significant significant portion of top eights. We had, you know, every single PT almost, it felt like there were Japanese players in the top eight. They made up half the top eight in San Diego. So I think any type of cry that Japan is falling off the horse is just ludicrous. They're still top of the game.
Well, we've got Tomohiro Saito, the player of the year, behind us up there, clearly a worthy champion. Second on the list is Kenji Samura.
Interesting story with Kenji. He's sort of taken up the label as the next best player after Kai and John and briefly Gabriel and Nassif. It looks like real life is going to start to intercede on Kenji, and he's going to start moving a little bit away from his professional career as a Magic player and focus a little bit more on school. Whether or not we're going to see him continuing to compete at the levels he's competed at the past few years on the Pro Tour remains to be seen. But if I had to guess, Rich, I would say we're going to see the same Kenji. We're just going to see a little bit less of him.
Yeah. But there's not an awful lot of Kenji there. If you have less Kenji, it's like you need a magnifying glass, dearie me. Well, Shingo Kurihara's up next. Really impressive last year, but some question marks over temperament. When the big events came where he really needed a big score, maybe he just didn't get more than the 2 points. Think of Pro Tour Valencia. Real disaster there for him. So he'll look for a consistent year this year to get to level 8 again.
I think so. He had a top 8 in Geneva, and he did have 2 Grand Prix finals. I think any position when you're under a lot of stress like you are at the Pro Tour can break players. Playing with the Japanese players that he does is sure to toughen him up, and I think just going through that last season will help make him stronger for this season and prepared to move through that type of pressure.
Well, Shuhei Nakamura is next, the leader in this year's Player of the Year race, very early. What about him?
Shuhei had kind of a quiet season last year until we got to Pro Tour Valencia, where he did have a top 8. I spoke to some pros this weekend. Earlier, we projected our top 8s. They had some professionals projecting top 8s, and Shuhei was actually on a lot of those lists. So regardless of how he's doing, a lot of pros, American, European, still have a lot of respect for him. And when pros are respecting someone, you know that everyone else needs to pay attention as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the headline with Shuhei is that last year he had a horrible season. Things went so wrong for him. Oh, and look, he's level 7 in the top dozen players in the world. That's on a bad year.
Yeah.
So he's made a good start. He is a real danger.
Yep.
Then you go down, you have former players of the year. You've got Shota Yasuoka, you've got Takuya Osawa, struggling today, but I think if he gets out of the pod, he's in with a good chance still of having a decent finish. Yuya Watanabe, Rookie of the Year. What's your take on him?
I said earlier that I like Yuya for top 8, and it is relevant to mention that he's 2-1 after the first pod. Again, testing with Saito, his sensei, so to speak, they call each other, and Saito's also 2-1. I think Yuya represents sort of that next generation of Japanese players that we've seen before with previous Japanese Rookie of the Years, like Masashi Oiso, Katsuhiro Mori, guys that have won the Rookie of the Year title and then instead of washing out have gone on to actually be even better in the future. So I expect big things from Yuya Watanabe, especially working with a guy like Saito.
And incidentally, Katsuhiro Mori not here, so if you're wondering how he's doing, well, he's 0-0 on the weekend, not here. The Japanese list goes on and on. You've got Masami Kaneko, the Grand Prix winner from Florence, very impressive. Former world champion Makihito Mihara. The list does go on. Japan, pretty much, as Bill says, still right at the forefront of world magic.
Absolutely.
Well, we're pretty much done for show number 2, but we leave you with one more trivia moment. Now, where have you heard this before? All boggarts have an auntie, but they don't all have a mum. All boggarts have an auntie, but they don't all have a mum. Any ideas, Bill?
Well, Rich, we don't read much flavor text when we're doing side drafts, but I think I have a few guesses.
You're such a spike. We will see you back on show number 3 when we come back. For Bill Stark, I'm Rich Hagan saying bye.